So maybe let's start from the beginning. Like, how did you end up doing what you're doing, like in general in music? Is that your background from France, or how did it kind of come to be your profession?
I lived in Australia 2009 to 2011, and so when I went back to Europe, that's where I did the hotel, and then decided to become a musician. And I was like, okay, maybe I should go back to Australia and try to write new songs and see what's happening there. And on the very first day I went back to Melbourne, I met that musician playing in the street.
Ben, is it?
Ben.
Okay.
Yeah, Ben Whiting. And I just kind of fell in love, and I was like, actually, this is what I want to do. I think I want to be on the other side. Okay. And from there, it's just been like, just my only purpose was like, okay, the music industry. So went back home, I sold my apartment to be able to come back to finance studies to come to Australia, because it was the only way to get a visa to stay in Australia. So I started with management, and then I always try to avoid the fact that I was French, and I really wanted to integrate to the Australian music industry. But I was always having questions from Australian asking me about the French market, and from the French asking me about the Australian market. And one day, where I used to live in France, there's a massive festival. It's been on for 29 years now, I think, or nearly 30 years. Yeah. And they do a focus on different part of the world each year. And that was back in 2018. And they called me, I think, in October or November 2017, and say, hey, Alex, we are doing our focus on Melbourne music scene. And I was like, what the hell?
Yeah, what a coincidence.
Like my hometown doing a festival on the Melbourne music scene. That's a big call. From embrace that and accept that my role is maybe doing the connection. And after that, I've been working more and more in doing that connection between France and Australia.
And I wonder, because you obviously worked really hard to be where you are in Australia right now, and you'd spent how long have you been there now? For like 4 years, is it?
Yeah, it's gonna be 4 years in a month.
Congratulations, and an anniversary coming up. So do you see and you obviously were a musician in France, as I just found out. So do you see differences between the two markets when it comes to everything, basically management in the market, how the music is perceived, how the artists behave? Have you noticed any major differences?
Yeah, so the main thing for me, it's seeing how French artists are going to be a bit stuck in their French way of doing things, and they're just going to look at the French market. Okay. And there's a lot of French, they're going to say, oh yeah, we have to develop French, and then we're going to see overseas. Mm-hmm. When Australians, from the start, they think international. They look at the bigger picture, bigger markets. They say, Australia is such a small country. So if we see that we've got a bit of traction in the country, up we go and we try to export. And I just don't understand why, I have to battle with some of the French artists I work with saying, I don't understand why you're still playing in France. What the hell? You should be playing in UK and Germany. Your music is not suitable for the French market. Because I work with a lot of artists singing in English. Because for what the French, we have to find music that adapts better to the Australian market. And when you sing in French, there's really very little chances that you're going to make it here. But yeah, I can see that those artists are just stuck in their way. And I think it has to do as well with the lack of connection within the French music industry with foreign markets. Because, French and English, don't speak English very well. You very easily stay in your little comfort between, the people from the French music industry. When in Australia, you've got a lot of people in the industry that have been living in the UK, living in the US, living in Germany. There's lots of connection. So that is really the biggest difference I've seen.
And so, because you were in a few years ago, you brought Kokomo, to Australia, which are fans, and they are singing English. So that's kind of the advantage. But do you think bands who sing in French, for example, wouldn't be successful because of the language difference, or is it not an issue at all for Australians?
No, I think it's really hard with the French, and it's funny because there are many times I contact journalists and talking about French bands, and they ask me which language are they singing. I said French. It's like, nah, It's crazy. It's
Okay.
crazy.
So
Yeah.
could we kind of draw the conclusion that in order to make it in Australia, you really have to sing in English, and that's like one of the major things that you have to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Except a few accidents that happen every now and then. Globally, it needs to be in English.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And is there anything that surprised you, maybe positively and negatively, when it comes to Australia? Something that you maybe didn't expect when you were coming, when it comes to the music business?
I think, yeah, it was how friendly it is. Because once again, I'm not the best representative for France because I never wanted to work in the French music industry. It's a funny one, but it's kind of an accident being working that much with the Frenchies now. But I always find the Australians more friendly than the French, and I was really surprised with that. That's the first thing. The second one is there's this, I call it that wave of the women in their 30s, mid 30s now, and they're really taking the power in the music industry. Like it's really what I feel. So yeah, that was the thing that surprised me the most.
So how do you, aside from the fact that you have to sing in English, yeah? How you must have been talking to a lot of, like you said, journalists and other musicians and other artist managers. How kind of responsive and interested in other kind of types of music from different countries are the Australians in general?
I find it really hard because you see that the really strong links with US and UK, it's kind of, they wouldn't jump on something if there's not something uh, positive getting in exchange. Like if they can't gain anything from that deal, they won't do it.
Okay.
It's a bit what I feel.
Okay.
And so the big work I'm doing at the moment is trying to recreate that connection with French artists and show that we've got more in common than what we think. So it's taking me so much of my time to do that, showing what type of collaboration we have, showing that the French music industry also supports Australian artists. But yeah, I find it really, 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 really hard in that way. It's like you can probably have smaller community radios that are going to be happy to discover new music and play stuff. But if you want to go at a higher level, it's a tricky one.
So Big Sound is coming up very soon, and I just remember that you participated last year and you had a presentation about what the France. So
yeah.
did that help make any connections or like spread out the word about the French music industry and how Aussies can break into that industry? Was it helpful for you?
It was, but I didn't have the tools ready at that time. It's been slowing down things, and then COVID, just started when we launched What the French. And basically, the idea with What the French was also to create more collaboration between French and Australian artists. That was the way I wanted to promote it. That it's been helping. I had a few artists asking me for help on the French market, but yeah, it's been a bit slower than of course than what we would have liked to. We were planning on doing stuff with different artists, helping them to promote their French shows or French tour. But yeah, obviously they just had to cancel everything.
So kind of going back to when you managed Ben, and it's a difficult thing to do if you're not a professional and you're kind of entering the business with the band in a way. And what were the challenges of doing that in Melbourne, where there's so much competition, and considering that Ben is a busker actually to start with, yeah? So I saw that you took him to a different level because that was when we were studying the course together. So you kind of showed us the journey you took him on. So, but what were the challenges? Like, what was difficult doing that in Melbourne?
Well, the first thing is like when I studied, I had absolutely no idea, absolutely no clue what I was doing. Okay. And it was in the street. I was like, look, I'm doing this course. Yeah, I didn't have the manager. I didn't know where to go. I was like, do you mind if I try what I'm learning with you? So we started like that. And 3 months after I started, he had an EP ready. And so I organized the first gig and we sold out the first gig. We did 280 people, which was really good. And I was like, this is actually really easy. You can sell out a 280 cap gig like that. And then it became really hard because then you're just like, oh yeah, but we didn't think about how we generate more lead out of that EP. We just released everything at once and then we lost all the traction. And then okay, so what do we do next? And so the biggest challenge, I guess, was like not being prepared for, a longer period of time, not preparing things well enough. Mm-hmm. You need to have at least 6 months. In the next 6 months, you need to know exactly what you're going to do and have a vision, for a year's time at least.
Okay.
That was the hard part. And then you need connections for everything. It's like, I was like discovering how the music industry works. Every single thing, like, how do you promote an album? When do you release it? How do you schedule a release?
Yeah. And so where was that first gig that you organized? What venue was
it? It was at the Tough in town. I think it was the 25th of April. Yeah. It was very interesting because just before the gig, I was going outside and I couldn't see anyone, in the room. And I was like, no one's coming. And then I've got a friend texting me, said, no, the doors are closed. There's a massive line outside. And I was like, what? I said, yeah, no worries. Yeah. And the next thing that, the venue is full. You're just like, okay, it worked.
Yeah. And speaking of the venues, because that's what I really like about Melbourne, they have so many, and like actually each suburb has their own kind of iconic venues and so on, and there are so many of them all together. What do you have any like favorite ones in Melbourne, or like the ones that you must have worked with a lot of them as well, like the ones that were kind of more kind of open-minded, or like they were really much more interested in promoting like the newer artists?
I think now they're all pretty open. Actually, most of the venue contact you to come and play, that is the main thing. For example, with if you compare to Paris, because in Paris you need to rent the room, organize your night, pay everyone. It costs you an absolute fortune to organize a gig. When here, they just take a percentage on the ticket, so it makes things so much easier. So basically the guys, doing the program for the venues, they're going to look at who's the last artist who sold out, or, how many followers do they have. So basically their job is to make sure that there's as many people as possible in the venue drinking beers.
Yeah.
So, everyone was really friendly. I guess it's always been very easy with everyone. Extremely easy, actually. It's just,
Okay.
So everyone is just, I think everyone is a music lover out there, and
that was my impression as well. They're very open-minded, and like whatever you want to do, they'll support it, because they just want to have the live music on, and it doesn't matter if you're very famous or not. They'll always they'll talk to you at least, they'll run you down at the door, and like they'll try to figure out how they can best support you. Maybe it won't be the gig like in the Gershwin room at the SP, but still they'll kind of offer you some support. That's what I found.
But even because we were talking with the SP for events with Weather Friends, and it's super easy going.
Okay.
It was like, wow, I was really impressed.
But I need to quote something, because I found it, I don't know where, but it was somewhere, I guess on your Facebook, on Wind and Birds, I guess. It says, following Kokomo's tour early January 2019, the importance to build a better structure to support French artists touring Australia became very clear. And I wanted to ask you about this, if you could elaborate what it means to build a better structure, or how do you see it now from the perspective of the experience that you have now?
So last year, in 2019, I spent nearly the entire year, I stopped all my projects, and I started traveling a lot with friends and learn a lot about how we can build that structure, bigger structure. So that's where came What the Friends into the picture, because I was like, I've got two choices. Or I build my own brand to promote French artists. Mm-hmm. And so when I put the brand outside, to the public, people will know, okay, this brand is cool. We're going to see some great bands. Or it was, to work with What the Friends and use their brand, and we go with that, we build the brand around that. And now when we'll do events, we'll have that communication platform and that brand to help promote the artists coming. So that was the first thing. And then the second thing was adding Groover, because Groover, from the start, the objective was like, when you bring a band around, how do you know that people from the industry are going to like it?
Exactly.
By using Groover, I can ask those bands to contact influencers on the Australian market, see the feedbacks we have. If the industry likes it, if we start to have traction from radios and media and all the blogs starting talking about it, we just like, okay, we've got a bit more data. We know that at least the industry likes it. Now we can think about something else. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Very much so, because it's obviously a lot of hard work. And like you're saying, like if you have a bigger brand behind you, then it's a bit easier as well to reach out to like the broadcasters and stuff. And not to say that they'll take you more seriously, but obviously then maybe you have bigger budgets as well, and you know, like better connections too. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, now we are part of the Ministry of Culture in France. So yeah, all the French, you know, organization and everything connected with French culture is connecting with us now. So that, you know, say we've got that base, that strong base now of contacts. That's good. And now we're trying to reach out to, you know, more Australian, you know, audience. But at least we've secured that. And I was there, you know, that is the most important for us.
That's really cool. So what's happening with, because you have this tour promoting agency as well that I think Ben was a part of as well, Wind and Birds, yeah? Or is it a separate?
Yeah.
So what's happening with it? Is it still active, or are you trying to fuse it with what de France, or is it going to be a slightly different project?
Yeah, it's a big question at the moment. I'm trying to reorganize everything, you know, as I'm discovering as well all the parts of the music industry, and I also discovering that there's other things that I love doing. But I guess it's like everything in the music industry. They always say you have to try things. You try and you modify and you try again and you change and you try again. So, you know, I launch Wind and Burn. I say we'll see how it goes. So yeah.
Cool. So fingers crossed it's going to work out still, and you'll be able to kind of combine both in a sense. But what do you think are the attractive features of the French music scene for Australia, and like kind of the other way around as well? What is Australian that the French dig, if you know what I mean?
Well, for an Australian artist perspective, it's like France is the 5th market in the world. Do not forget that 66 million people. And I see a lot of Australian artists going to the UK, going to Germany, and we've got France in the middle there. It's just, you know, just next door. They can just, when they do a tour in Europe, it doesn't cost much more to go to France. And it's just there. It's like, why they're not connecting to such a massive audience that we have? So that was like, okay, 5th market in the world. If you look at the data, if you like, it's like everything. It's like with COVID. You can look at the data in one way, it gives you an answer. You can look at the data another way, you've got another answer. You realize that there's room for Australian artists. But yeah, it's a weird one. If you look at the top 200, I think it was 80% of urban music in France and sung in French. So you look at that, you're just like, no, I'm not going to France. There's no way, there's no room for us. But I think that top 200 represent only 5% of the total streams in France.
Okay.
So it's just like you've got another 95% of streams that just, you know, mix between all the other genres. So there's plenty of things that work. There's plenty of bands that sell out rooms, but you never hear about them. It's just, you know, more indie things or underground. Not even underground. It's just, yeah, not as, you know, mainstream. Mm-hmm. And on the other side, Australia, it's for French artists, realistically, there's no real interest in coming to Australia.
Okay.
Because it's far, it's expensive. But for us, it was more about, so yeah, I'm not only working with Australia now, it's like how we bring them to that part of the world. They still dream about it. You talk to a French band, they dream about coming to Australia, you know? So touring Australia and New Zealand. And then after we've got some French islands, like we've got New Caledonia, French Polynesia. They can also go to Asia. So for us, it was more, see Australia as a part of something a bit bigger. It's not on the Australian market. But yeah, if you look at it on the financial point of view, it's really hard, really, really hard. That's why there's so little, you know, French bands coming around.
And so speaking of that, what French artists would you recommend to Aussies to listen to? Like, what do you think would get traction here? I mean, here in
the answer, you can find the answer in the playlist that we do, What the France Australia.
Okay.
So we every month I do a different mix of songs that I think can make it to the Australian market for people to discover. We're going to be talking about, in October, we're going to be talking about Woodkid, for example.
He's actually famous in Europe.
It's a huge artist, So he's releasing a new album on October 16th. So we'll be working a lot with him.
So you mentioned that you are about to interview like one of the biggest stars this coming Friday.
Yeah. No, that's no secret behind that. It's called the band is called Indochine,
Okay.
and they've been playing for 40 years now. It's one of the most iconic rock band in France. They announced earlier this year a stadium tour. So next year they're going to be playing 5 stadiums in France. And what was happening, like the behind the scene of the music industry. So you see how hard it is for a French band because they sing in French.
Okay.
They're signed with Sony. And basically what happened is like when they released the album, Sony Music Australia didn't want to promote Indochine because they said there's no way it's not going to work here. And they're right, it's not going to work to an Australian audience. So they were trying to find a way to connect with the French audience, or at least Francophile. So yeah, I started working on the promotion of this album. We did a first interview with SBS, and the singer Nicolas says that he would love to play in Australia. So I have to interview him again on Friday. Well, on Friday, yeah, 3:45 a.m. on Friday. It's gonna be tough.
Yeah.
And yeah, we are playing a bit around the fact that we want to bring him to Australia, but we won't be able to do a stadium tour here. So it's gonna have to I don't know, come in a van or play something in smaller pubs.
Yeah. So look, you mentioned SBS French and or France. I don't know what it's called because obviously they have different kind of branches for different languages, and that of the kind of populations that live in Australia. So I can see that you've had some support from there. And have you spoken to any other radio stations in Australia that would be potentially interested in promoting French music aside from Triple J?
Yeah, so we've got a French presenter at RTR-FM in Perth, Geraldine. So she's playing a bit of French music. We've got another community radio in Brisbane, Radio 4 EB. I've been also talking with people from 2SER, PBS, Triple R to see if we could include a bit of French music inside the show. So it's still something we're talking about. I kind of stepped back a bit about that this year because like maybe it's not the moment. Maybe, we have to accept that this year it's Australia first. And, we keep doing what we're doing with our French community, but we have to respect as well, the territory and the Australian artists. So hopefully next year, things get better and we'll have more opportunities.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And is the French embassy or the French consulate working at all? Like you must have like a cultural section there as well. So have you spoken to them perhaps, or are they interested?
Yeah, I'm working a lot with the Alliance Française actually, more than the embassy. So most of our communication goes through them. That's how we decided to work. So we're also working on the education program, like through music at the moment. So we're going to create playlists of French music where they can learn French listening to music, and we're going to, with different themes and genre of music. So we're actually working on that. It needs to be out in a month's time. So we've got a lot of work around that.
No, this year obviously is slightly different for everybody, and you have to accept the fact that maybe Australian music needs to come first now in Australia, which is totally understandable. But I guess, this time has pushed us all to kind of do new and creative things as well and come up with new ideas. So do you see any opportunities that have come out of this, let's say, whole pandemic? Like we've been in this situation for half a year now. Everybody obviously assumed it was going to be just for a few weeks and everything will go back to normal, but it's not the case. Do you see any opportunities that maybe came up for you unexpectedly, or maybe have you figured out like a new way of doing things that you never kind of assumed would work in this time?
Yeah, for me, the main thing was able to get access to artists I never thought would accept to do certain things. Like we've been doing what we call Zoom apéro session. So people were joining us, having a drink, and we were welcoming an artist and just having a casual chat between the crowd and the French artist and some of massive artists. And I would have never imagined of that before. And now they're just like looking at Australia and like, well, yeah, why not? We've got nothing to do in France. We're stuck at home. Why not? So for us, it was the main thing. Now, technically, there's still a lot of things to improve, but like so far, it's been really good. Like it's tough on the live side of things, but yeah, it's been really, really good what happened. I must admit. It obliged me to stop, because I have to say as well, like I'm not making enough money with all those projects at the moment. So I had to have side jobs. And I arrived to a point where I was working so much on the side to be able to finance what I was doing here. I was extremely tired and I was not moving fast enough. So all that obliged me to stay home, forget about everything, and just focus on what I'm doing. And in 6 weeks, it's like everything is just moving super fast. I just needed that.
Yeah. And so what are the big steps for you, like from now on?
Thinking about an idea of creating a media. It's like working with a lot of media now. I see what I miss, what I would like to find. And I'm just thinking about something around that, along those lines, saying how could we, reinvent a bit the music discovery. Because I must admit, I'm a bit sick of going on Spotify and letting Spotify give me ideas of what I should be listening. I'm not surprised anymore, and I want to be surprised. So
I'm going to ask you an unfair question, but I guess you could say with your experience of living in Australia, what's your favorite Aussie band?
Very good question. I always love the Cat Empire. There's so many. I should say what I'm listening now. I like Lime Cordial, Sticky Fingers, things like DMA.
I love
There's probably much more than that I've been listening, but I can't even remember because I'm so much into the French music that I must admit I've lost touch in the last few weeks.
Yeah. Anyways, cool. Thanks very much again, and
all right.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.